All right.
Tactical trilobite.
Tactical trilobite. Back in the saddle, dude.
Yeah,
What's been wrong with us lately?
Oh, man, I was taking a nap.
That's a long ass nap, dude. Our 15 listeners have been, really.
Bless you for staying with us, 15 listeners.
Yeah. They're like, hey, when are they gonna post?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have a valid excuse, do we?
Not really.
Other than summer rolled around, sun's out, guns out, right?
Yeah. That's life happens. Life comes at you fast.
Okay. Yeah.
Just cliche shit.
Dude, I was something happened the other day. It was like 2 weeks ago, and I made a point to remember it because I was going to run it by you today. And I'm constantly fascinated by people, right? And just their reactions to shit that they do, like that happens, but somehow it gets pushed onto me. So something bad happens to them by no fault of mine. I have nothing to do with it, and somehow I am implicated. Okay,
Like they're making it your problem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I parked in a 2-level parking garage, right? And when you go to the stairs to walk down it, it's kind of got that zigzag effect or whatever. So I go down the stairs and I have my headphone, my AirPods in, right? Which I have my AirPods in. I mean, I don't know, always and forever. Like I feel naked without my AirPods.
It's become a part of my head.
Yeah. I don't walk around without them, and they're up loud. Okay, so because I like it that way. Listening to a podcast, I can't even remember. Anyway, so I'm walking. I get down to the bottom, and then I'm walking away from the parking structure. Okay, I'm no longer involved in this parking structure at all. And then I hear a lady behind me, and I had seen her like get out way further back. I kind of didn't pay attention to it. Seen a lady behind me on that little square, that concrete square. So you come down the stairs. There's that square where you kind of pivot, and then you go down the other stairs.
Yeah, right.
And she's all, hey, and I turn around and I look and I turn my AirPods off and I'm like, are you okay? And then she's like, I fell, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And you just kept walking, and I'm like,
what?
Well, I had my headphones in. I didn't hear you. Well, you should be paying attention. And I'm like,
Did you ask her if she needed help?
No, I put my earphones in and walked off. Like, because I was like, I said not one more word to her. I put my AirPod back in.
You didn't even acknowledge her.
I was like, you no longer exist to me.
She's mad because you didn't acknowledge her, and then you continued to not acknowledge
like,
her.
What is that? What's happening there?
I think she was hitting on you.
No, she wasn't. She was, I could tell, like, legit distressed. Like, I don't know.
Wait,
she had fallen like she had.
Did you figure where were you in proximity to her falling?
Probably 20 feet away from walking away from the parking structure. And then she was coming down the first flight of stairs. And I mean, it seemed maybe she fell like, I don't know, midway from the stairs and then fell onto that. Maybe, I don't know. I didn't see what happened. I didn't hear what happened either. Not until she yelled and then got my attention.
So your first interaction with her was when she was caterwauling and got your attention.
Yeah, and then I turned and she was trying to get my attention, and then I turned around, saw her, and she didn't say help. She just sasaid, "Hey." Pause.
And she was wanting to let you know that you were very inconsiderate because you walked by her and wanted you to pay attention. Like her whole, like, she had to go out of her way to like make sure that you acknowledged her to let you know that she fell, and then she found out you didn't notice that.
Something. I don't know what. Well, but the part that I found funny was, like, if she was asking for help, I get that, right? I mean, she was, I don't know, she wasn't like disabled or anything, but I assume what had happened hurt, because you can see on somebody's face when they're like legit distressed, right?
Yeah.
And I could tell she was.
But she didn't want help?
She didn't ask for help. She just criticized me that I didn't hear her fall. and then gave me feedback on, well, you need to be paying attention. I'm like, I need to be paying attention to people falling downstairs. Like, I don't know if that was just like just a mix of, fear and embarrassment all at the same time. And then because I was the only person around, and because, she just didn't know what to say, that's all that came to her thoughts. She probably fell. My suspicion is she probably fell, noticed me keep walking and not acknowledging her. She probably didn't see that I had my AirPods in. And then she probably just thought that I had noticed her falling and ignored her, right? Which I didn't do.
So she thought you noticed, and so she didn't think
maybe
you just.
I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt.
It had to have been.
I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe she was like a really big fan of the concept of situational awareness, and she was like trying to help you avoid getting mugged.
Yeah,
and was like, this is a way. Maybe it was out of concern for you.
Well, it was the middle of the day, so I don't think. Yeah, it was. I don't think it was that.
Yeah. You're a good target of mugging, though.
Yeah, of course. Maybe it was just. It seems like just such a narcissistic impulse for her to be like, "Hey, and
you didn't notice me.
What's up? I fell. Do you need? And I asked her, do you need help?
Yeah, okay.
And you didn't even acknowledge it. Like, why? I had my headphones in. I couldn't hear. Well, you should be paying attention.
The lesson that came with it.
I should be paying attention?
The only way to handle that is to not acknowledge she said that.
And I did.
In,
headphones on.
Yeah, that's the only way to handle it. At that point.
So
she had my sympathy up until that part, kind of.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't feel bad for her because I didn't know what happened. I mean,
you don't even know she fell. That could have been a big
did. She
ruse.
was on her knees.
Oh.
Like, I mean, she was like kind of pushed up. I could tell she fell. Okay, she fell. I mean,
so that wasn't fake.
No, I don't think so. But everything else, I'm like, why am I responsible for your clumsiness?
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to help, but not at the expense of you criticizing me.
Yeah.
Jeez,
don't tell me to pay attention.
I got podcasts to listen to. Moving on.
I'm trying to learn.
Yeah. So, speaking of narcissism, we just kind of got through with a dry run of our well, at least part of our ATSA presentation, going over some Dark Triad stuff, and you were kind of saying that going over some of the techniques with our clinicians was helpful. Yeah. You say they dug it?
Right after we presented, I immediately went from there into the group room to do my professional development thing, and I just ran down the PowerPoint, did my best impersonation of you. Didn't quite get your slides as well as you do it, but by the time I got to through confronting countertransference, they seemed to really like it. Mm-hmm. So I mean, they were either like pumping me up because they knew I was excited to present at ATSA and wanted to placate me, or they actually really liked it. And I think it's the latter. They were saying they wanted. I was saying how you and I were looking at maybe getting the people in the audience cue cards or some.
We'll for sure do that.
Yep.
Everybody seemed to really appreciate that. I think they were all.
We keep running out of time.
I think. That's. I don't think so. I think we were fine. It was.
That's right. Because we get another half an hour.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, we're good.
We should be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some. We have some redundancies. That's what we do, though. I wasn't really too worried.
It was a good test run, dude.
That today. So, no, that's good. I'm glad that worked out for them, and they liked it and everything here too. So, and this is kind of picking up on the last stuff that we went off of. I was gonna share, because you're gonna today. I think what we're gonna try to talk about is so if you're a clinician working with clients with any of the Dark Triad traits that you're noticing, you weren't there. Afterward, one of the things, one of the people who were, being presented to the audience, I guess, the attendees, said, well, I think kind of this is a little bit deeper for some people, because most of our clients, being that they're juveniles, aren't in the Dark Triad. They're kind of in the light triad. I'm like, well,
the light triad,
I guess. I mean, I said, well, yeah, the the majority of your clients, 90% of them aren't gonna be part of this population. You're not gonna notice these things, and traditional therapeutic approaches work. And the one thing I try to emphasize was, well, actually, the techniques in terms of the use of cognitive behavioral therapy and targeting the criminogenic risks that are most present, that doesn't change. We still do that. What needs to change, though, is our attitude and our approach as clinicians. So I guess to preface this, the one thing is, we're not, anybody who's listening to this, and you can watch the video. We have on YouTube, like and subscribe. How's that? If you hit 100,000 likes, then we'll make another video. We'll make one anyway. So I love that. You're all, bitch, you're going to make one anyway.
Yeah,
don't, come on. Yeah, like, get real. But I think that's one thing that we'll want to get across, and anybody listening to this, it's only the clients that you have observed that have these traits. Like, you're not going to, we would never, I think, apply these skills to just a quote unquote run-of-the-mill client. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So that's one thing to.
This is like in case of emergency, break glass type.
Sure. Yeah. And so I was like, well, I mean, I don't know if that was critical feedback or just useless rhetorical feedback. You're just trying to hear yourself talk, or
was she just trying to make the point? It was a he. Was he trying to make the point that
his name was Dave? So.
Oh, was it Dave?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he would be the one to listen to.
I guess
he knows what he's doing.
Maybe. I don't know. So this, I was gonna pull up and give some credit. This was kind of a review of some of the research that we pulled off of, and it's the treatment of psychopathic offenders. And this was a review of research and current practice into what we're doing now. So. And really what we pulled from all of that was, so they have what they call kind of a two-factor approach. And the factor one focuses on some of the interpersonal characteristics of these clients, right? And those are the callousness, the lack of compassion, kind of the coldness towards other people, and that those ought to not be your treatment targets. Now, those are what you need to pay attention to, because really what you're doing is you're shifting your attitude as a clinician, that you have to accept that those are going to be baked into the cake, and you have to shift your approach and then make it work for you versus against you.
So it's like, we're not trying to fix the callousness. We're recognizing this client tends to be callous and cold towards people, and that then is our indication to change up our approach while still focusing on the requisite treatment targets.
Right. And the one thing that we've talked about before is, remember, particular. So for all of its bad characteristics with, psychopathy and narcissism and the manipulative Machiavellianism, they have characteristics that are highly functional in certain settings. You know what I mean? And really what we're trying to say is, okay, we're almost, as kind of as we described it today, it's like a permission slip for them to use their manipulation skills and manipulate others, but not at the expense of the other people. It's to build relationships and then heighten their own status. Because the idea there is, if we can get this person into a status, we're talking socially, and I'm not talking about like how many friends he has on Facebook or followers on Instagram. I'm saying that, if he has stable employment, he's got friends, he has, maybe he's in a relationship, and a good gig, gainful employment, he's unlikely to mess all of that up because it's not in his self-interest. Not because it's going to affect all these other people or because it's the bad thing to do. He has status now and he doesn't want to lose that status. And that's the primary motivator for him to keep doing the right thing.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of the approach, and it like we've said before, it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. I think that's where a lot of people start to diverge from our thinking, and they have a hard time with it. But I acknowledge to them, hey, if you can't deal with it, then don't work with these clients. Like, you got to be honest with yourself about that.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. So, okay. So a lot of these slides are yours. So I'm gonna kind of jump into this, and then I'm going to just comment and piggyback on what you are going to talk about. So let's get into this first one. for folks.
Sweet. All right. So morals schmorals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the golden rule and the silver rule are generally agreed upon social contracts that most people operate on. You know, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Don't do to other people what you don't want done to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people kind of intuitively get that, and we act in a way that is in accordance with those values, and that's just not the case with the Dark Triad client. But the Dark Triad client is still aware of the golden rule. They still understand that this can be a powerful way to get what you want if you understand how people tick. And so they more operate along the "what have you done for me lately" line of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-interest. It's the things that move the Dark Triad client aren't necessarily like the quality of, you know, emotional reciprocity. It's money, esteem, respect, all things that you and I both endorse as well. But like we in theory have we have other traits, other values that put us in check to where the pursuit of money, esteem, and respect isn't the only means. Whereas the Dark Triad client, that's what makes them tick. That's what makes them operate. And so you're not going to change that.
So the money, I guess
For example, money,
right.
esteem, and respect.
Okay, so those are some examples of those,
Yeah.
and you could interchange those with other things too,
Mm-hmm.
like power,
Right.
sexual gratification, right? And I guess would it be fair to say that the primary difference between them and somebody who doesn't have those traits is that most people, although they also pursue money, they pursue respect, they pursue those things, they wouldn't do it at necessarily at the expense of another person.
A great way of looking at it.
Like, in other words, they wouldn't, not if it caused harm to another individual. Whereas a Dark Triad client, they'd be fine to get all of that, but if it means I got to harm another person or it's at another person's expense, that's fine too. Like, they're indifferent about it.
That'd be the key difference. They're in it for themselves, and it's just important to understand that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the one thing that they were coming up with was like the on this one that I thought was kind of a cool point was this last point was, it's in their best interest to act morally and compassionately long term.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that though? So we're saying they won't. They'll step on anybody to get the money, esteem, and respect. So why is it in their best interest to act morally and compassionately?
Yeah, so they're really good about acting morally and compassionately in the short term so they can pull one over on people. And the idea here though is if you can develop enough of a rapport and respect with the Dark Triad client, you can get them to buy into that the quality of their relationships long term will be better if they act this way. They'll be more employable. Mm-hmm. They'll progress better in treatment. It's one of those things that, like, long term, the Dark Triad client doesn't typically think long term down the road. They want what they want right now. They're impulsive, and staying the course and acting as though you care about other people is a challenge. And the payoff isn't immediately apparent to the Dark Triad client, and so our job is to help connect the dots that, like, okay, it's worth the work, it's worth the effort, and here's why. And then that's kind of the idea.
Okay, so more so, we're saying that you're not. I guess they're not actually being. They're not actually showing compassion or morality. They are pretending.
Yeah.
But that's in their best interest, and but that's okay. Like, because although we know they're pretending, it's still very functional socially for them to do that.
This is the ugly part that people don't like.
Mm-hmm.
This is what makes other therapists resistant to engaging this way, is because that sounds awful, and it kind of is. But if we're looking at outcomes, if we're looking at,
Well, what better are you going to get
you're not.
other than that?
Yeah, you're not gonna make them selfless all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that you have to acknowledge, okay, they're selfish, they are self-focused. But if you can get them to see that they can still get what they want, and it will be better over the course of their lifetime if they can engage in some of these behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
pro-social behaviors, golden rule following people, that they're more likely to get what they want long-term than just using it to get the quick route and end up in the justice system because they use somebody for sex or money or whatever.
I wonder if we can come up with a phrase for that, a rule that applies to the Dark Triad.
Oh, like
there's the golden rule, the silver
okay.
rule, but then there's the
right,
like the you don't say the dark rule because it's gotta have like 2 syllables to stick in that golden rule silver. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We'll have to workshop
all
that.
right.
That rule, based on what you're saying, is almost like
That's what we got to. Yeah. So like, rather than treat other people the way you want to be treated, it's got to be some version of like, but like, for them to acknowledge that they're
pay attention to how others are letting you know how they want to be treated, and pretend to
something like this. That's the right track.
To acknowledge and respect that. Like that's the rule.
Coming up with like a concise way of saying that is exactly what we're going for, dude.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
So this next piece is this idea of empathy versus theory of mind, and a lot of people know what empathy is, but I don't think a lot of people know what theory of mind is.
This is like during the presentation. This is what I was thinking, because like you were talking about cognitive empathy, and that's kind of what
theory of mind.
Theory of mind, and so I guess we just like, I'm not married to theory of mind. We could go with cognitive empathy, but we should probably like, we can have empathy and then cognitive empathy. I chose theory of mind just because it drops the word empathy entirely.
Yeah, I think theory of mind is better because so if you're a clinician trying to understand this, theory of mind, you get out of the realm of empathy because and I guess the one thing that I've taken from this is you don't abandon empathy with these clients altogether. You're just teaching them a more or a less emotional form of empathy, right? Which is theory of mind, and theory of mind is better. I think it leaves off the empathy piece, because then people get really. People are very therapists in particular. When I say people, they are very like married to the thinking of empathy. So navigating away from that, even though that's what we're talking about, I think is a wise choice.
They even call themselves empaths. I don't use that word.
I know. I was like, that Mantis character on Guardians of the Galaxy. She's an empath too. Yeah, that's so I didn't know you were a superhero, but all right.
And so like how we ascribe mental states to other persons, and how we use the states to explain and predict the actions of the other person. So like how might one of our clients benefit if they're able to accurately understand, explain, and predict the actions of other people?
Yeah, and I guess you'd say, well, if they could do that, think about that. Like, it's not too far of a cry for something like that. If you just say, how could you benefit that? Turn it into a simple scenario, a job interview. Okay, so I'm a client. Or I'm an individual who has a lot of dark triad traits, and I go into an interview, right? And I believe genuinely that I'm going to bring, value to the company, because of course I would think that, right? And then they're going to be asking me questions. I would want to use those skills and use theory of mind to try to understand what it is that they're looking for, what it is that they need to hear, and how I need to say it in a way that's going to convince them that I'm the best person for the job.
That's a great example.
Right.
Because the unchecked, if the dark triad person isn't using this skill, they might maybe brag way too much. Whereas if they're using theory of mind, they might actually be able to like anticipate what the interviewer what makes them tick. They might understand that like, okay, this guy's big on consistency and showing up on time. Maybe I'll emphasize that I'm committed to getting to work on or whatever it is, right? Rather than just what they want to brag about.
Also, I don't think, I mean, don't we all kind of do that to some degree?
Absolutely.
Like you just go in there and you did, because they ask really sometimes ambiguous questions in an interview. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And someone's like, where is this coming from? And you kind of just make it up on the spot. And maybe that's part of the interview process. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know I haven't done an interview in a long time, but that's sometimes what I think is happening there. But we do the same thing. Like, I don't know if I don't do this anymore either, but going out to a club, right? Like, let's say you were going out with your boys to a club. You certainly would dress differently. You'd probably do your hair better, wear some cologne, brush your teeth for once. You'd want to put your best foot forward, because I guess you would do collectively theory of mind. If I was going to meet a young lady or a young man, whatever you're looking at, I would want them to view me in my best light, right? It's manipulative. It's not that you're going there to, roofie them. Maybe you are, I don't know, but like that would be. I'm just looking for a potential partner, so I'm going to put my best foot forward, and then we kind of take it from there.
That's all this really is.
Yeah, that's and it's on another level because they already have those skills inherent into their personality structure. We're just trying to move it into the good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think and that's where I think a lot of people say, well, you're just teaching them how to manipulate better. Like, well, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And actually the research on this says that that's what you're doing. But in positive outcomes, that's actually not a bad thing, because you're acknowledging that. But the reason why is because a lot of therapists, their approach is, okay, we're going to break through this callousness and this coldness, and then like this person and we're going to develop a very deep and meaningful relationship. No, you're not.
Right.
They don't. You are a commodity to them. You're a means to an end for them. And it could be interchangeable. All you need to do is convince them that you're the person, and then they will choose to continue to work with you, not out of a devotion to the relationship, out of a devotion to you're the commodity that's going to help them. And if that's the case, you can move them along the way. Like that's super helpful. So the research is actually correct in that, but that doesn't mean don't treat them. You are treating them, you are teaching them to manipulate better, but you have to focus on the status and building that status up. Not manipulate better, like, or try to teach them, oh, you shouldn't do this because that hurts other people. Dude, they don't care about that stuff.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And maybe we should, like, I know it's semantics, but manipulate has a negative connotation.
Oh, right.
And influence doesn't sound as bad. Because look, as far as the
persuade.
Yeah,
sure.
Because like, if you're getting ahead at the expense of somebody else, somebody gets harmed because for you to get ahead, that's not what we're teaching. Obviously, that's what gets these guys into trouble in the first place.
That sounds like coerce.
Yeah. Right. So the long term, when we talk about long-term change, long-term benefit, you can see that in what we're teaching them with theory of mind, helping them see that what they want may not be what they want right now might not be the best for them, teaching them to learn to listen to others and not tune them out, teach them the perception other people have of humility and self-deprecating humor, and then to act as though they value the feelings of other people. They're not going to care about the feelings of other people, but if they can at least go through the motions, nod their head, smile, reflect back what they heard, their relationships are going to improve, and it's going to be better in the long term.
I always thought too, like if you're doing that, at least with them, I guess persuade, influence is a better word for people that we're trying to present this to. To the client, I always tell them, hey, I'm going to teach you how to manipulate better. Like
they love hearing it that way.
Buy into that, and they're like, wait, what? But I was like, but there's a rule. Has to result in positive outcomes for everybody. Like, that's for you too, but it can't lead to any harm stuff. That's because that's going to bring down your status. You're harming other people. eventually you're going to get convicted for that. It's going to bring down your status even more. Being in prison, they don't like that status. They can get status in prison, but it's capped. Like there's you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's only so much of a kingpin you can be in prison.
Right.
So it's not, I don't think it's going to work out for you in the long run as far as those things go. So that definitely is something that they're going to want to hear when it comes to I don't know, like, if they know that this is going to improve their status and we're giving them, you know, tools to manipulate, a lot of times they get on board because they're like, oh, sweet, I can manipulate. I'm like,
exactly.
Well,
buy-in creates buy-in.
So let's go over this was a technique that you came up with. Some of it seems kind of obvious, but I think to a lot of people, it's not as obvious as they'd like to think. So explain this technique for us.
Well, okay. Confronting countertransference. So look, if you're a clinician, you already know what countertransference is. You know, it's where it's where you, the therapist, react to the client in a way that causes an emotional reaction, entanglement. They make you feel some kind of way, better or worse. And everybody's aware of that. And so when you're saying that it's kind of obvious, it is. But the thing is that a slick Dark Triad client it's two things. It's a slick Dark Triad client may well just be able to pull one over on you and charm you into doing their bidding or, you know, manipulating you in a certain way. And that happens twofold. It happens because these guys are good at manipulating. They're better than you at it. And then the other reason is that when you're in therapist mode, you're sitting in a session, and you're trying to like help out a client. Your focus is a little bit different, and it's easy when you're having a reaction internally. We're kind of trained to like bypass this. I'm trying to work with the client here. We're not really tuning in to what's going on internally inside of us, and that's the danger. And that's where the countertransference hits. That's where you're then being influenced by your own emotional reaction, and you end up giving shitty feedback to the client that's based on wanting them to not be so damn selfish or whatever it is. Whereas your real feedback for the client should be, okay, this guy is selfish. I need to help him develop skills to not be. I can feel myself reacting. Other people react too. So that's kind of what that is. And just real quick on the therapeutic alliance, you know, real quick, if you're needing to intervene within your own mindset, is if you're noticing that kind of the halo effect and the pitchfork effect. If your client is wearing a perpetual halo, they seem to do nothing wrong, you feel like they got screwed, great guy. Or if your client can't do anything right in your eyes, you need to test meeting with them, there's a really good chance that you're getting pulled into the charm or the spell of the Dark Triad client.
Well, and the one thing I think is we do this all the time, and it's easier with other client populations. And I'll give you an example. Like, okay, let's say I'm it's our we're having a session, and I have a history of paranoid delusions, right? And your task is to throw an affirmation my way or validate me after I tell you something, okay? So I say to you, Jeff, you wouldn't believe it. Dude, for the last week, every time I leave my house, there's like 3 people in cars waiting for me, like looking at me the entire time. And they're paying attention to me. And I can see them recording me on their cell phones. And I know they're watching me. And then I drive away. And then I notice other people following me. And dude, you wouldn't believe it. So I was in my house, and I heard stuff up in my attic, and I went up there. And I looked down in the attic, and I saw a light. I saw this blinking light at the end of it. And I know that's a camera. I know they're watching me, dude. And I guarantee the CIA is trying to replace me with a robot version of me. I know it's going to happen, right? What would you say to that guy?
Well, man, that's got to be true. You're 100% right.
Yeah, right.
Not that.
Yeah.
I don't want to join the delusion, right?
Right. What part of that would you validate for him?
The willingness to share something scary with me,
okay,
and to trust me with that information.
The emotion, right? So you might say, dude, that sounds scary.
Right.
Like, okay, now I'm not endorsing the thoughts at that point. I'm not validating the thoughts, and I'm not like condoning the thoughts because you don't feed into it. But genuinely, if those are his thoughts, that is probably pretty scary. Now, the point of that is now I'm validating the emotion that's behind that. And why? Why am I doing that? What's the point?
Well, the emotion is real, for one thing,
right?
And the thought isn't. The emotion is real, but like also the client. If my goal is to talk this dude into taking his damn medications, he's gonna have to trust me,
right?
And and if I'm able to join with him in the emotion and reflect some level of concern for his well-being, he's gonna trust me. I'm not just gonna be a naysay, because I'm not gonna be like, dude, you're full of shit. There's no way that's the case. No one's following you. The red light is probably your VCR from the 1980s or something,
right? Because then he'd say, oh, you're one of them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like he'd be in on it. So that's a simple example that a lot of people, if we did that same test, they would probably get correct. But I think with the Dark Triad clients, I think it rubs them so the wrong way that they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that same technique. They just have a visceral reaction to it. And they want to tell them how bad of what they're saying is, like how on a moral level what they're saying is so awful. And that's going to do the same thing. It's going to diminish trust.
Right.
And trust me, like I don't think trust is a factor for them sometimes. Like they may trust that you're going to help them, but not that, oh yeah, I trust Jeff. I don't think they care. Like it I don't think it's not a quality that necessarily matters to them.
Yeah.
If I know that you're a guarantee to help me, but that's the thing. It's like, oh,
I'm a tool to them.
Yeah, exactly. So wait a minute. So then you tell me, dude, that's horrible for you to say. How could you say that? I can't. Do you ever think about how that impacts people? Like, oh, that's a broken tool. That's not going to help me anymore, right? And then, so it's not as if he's going to blow up either. Sometimes they might say, you know what, Jeff, you're right. I shouldn't say those things. You've lost him. Yep. It's over. You know what I mean? Like, so
you go on your merry way thinking he got through to him.
Right. And you haven't. Yeah. Now they've turned it on you because now you're a broken tool. And what do we do with, we dispose of broken tools. They're useless to us anymore. So we just move on. And I know I have to attend this therapy session X amount of times a week or whatever.
I'll make this broken tool feel important.
Yeah. But beyond that, I'm not going to use this anymore. So that kind of brings us into the skill steps for confronting countertransference.
Right. Yeah. So skill step one is, and all these skill steps I do them in my head. I'm not interacting with the client, right? In fact, I need to not interact with the client so I'm not saying the wrong thing. Skill step one is observe what my client is communicating to me through both verbal and nonverbal meanings. I know that sounds obvious, but here's the thing. Like a real charming Dark Triad client is going to use a lot of the same techniques that you, the therapist, use. They're not going to call it reflective listening or affirmations, and they're not going to necessarily understand what mirroring means, but they do it naturally, and they can charm you into whatever it is they're trying to get from you. Or on the flip side of it, and I know you've got an example for this later, that they may well be communicating, they might be communicating discomfort, but the way they do it is so shockingly abhorrent with the stuff they'll say that you miss it. So you're trying to observe, what are they actually trying to communicate to me? Skill step two is you're noticing where in your body you feel, if you're feeling any physical reactions. We know, any therapist worth their salt knows that a lot of times we can feel in our body where we experience an emotion well before we cognitively register it. And the example I share is when I get upset, like right before the point where I'm going to say something I have to apologize for, I get this pressure kind of behind my eyeballs. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. Like my head kind of swims a little bit and I'm about to say some wild shit. I know that I need to chill when I'm feeling that way. And so if I notice internally during a session, I'm feeling myself physically react, skill step three then tells me to ask myself if my reactions are influencing my ability to remain objective. So if I just got through telling you that, like, I feel this pressure in my eyeballs when I'm getting angry or whatever emotion it is.
Are you sure that's not, what's that eye thing that happens that puts pressure on your eyes?
The one you have to smoke pot for?
Sure.
Yeah.
What is that? I was going to say lymphoma.
Oh, dude,
that
we have to like think of something.
I was like, I know that isn't it.
Our listeners are saying it. Right?
Yeah.
They're yelling at
you
their
idiots.
Yeah. Glaucoma.
Glaucoma. Yeah, I know I had an oma.
Yeah. You said lymphoma. I got eye cancer. Yeah. if I'm asking myself if my reactions are influencing my ability to remain objective, I need to be honest with myself. And this is where some humility comes into play. Like, I have to be willing to admit, okay, the client kind of got to me there. I'm feeling reactive. And so skill step 4 is if I am reacting emotionally, I need to not say anything right then. If I react, I'm not in therapist mode. I'm in the whatever they riled up in me. What I need to do is I need to switch my thinking to future focus. So it kind of to drill down on skill step 4 a little bit. Go ahead. And
Yeah, because on these, and the one thing I think is don't if you're a therapist and you're looking at those skill steps, you don't want to do those like in the moment. You know, like this is something that you would practice outside of session, right? Like you would you wouldn't pull this out as you're going through some of these.
No.
And also like my I think even today I was saying, hey, be comfortable with this not going well the first few times. Like if this was something that you were doing before, you're probably likely going to continue doing these things, and it's okay because you're trying to make a change on some of these things. So it's not really end of the world, provided that you're attempting to improve that quality.
Right. So this is drilling down on skill step 4. So if we're acknowledging that if you're feeling fired up or whatever it is, your focus is on reacting to the client. If you can ask yourself a question to move yourself out of reacting to thinking about the future of, the next few things I'm going to say here, how can I help my client? I'm just going to read through some of the examples because I think the examples clarify what I'm getting at here. So if, client says something awful that lacks empathy and makes you upset, you're like, the reactive focus is, my client is such a jerk. I can't believe he said that. Future focus would be, okay, well, given that my client is a jerk, how can I be more effective with my approach? Right? So it's not that I'm trying to tell myself, my client's not a jerk. He's a human being like everybody else. No, he's a jerk. But I need to ask myself how I can be more effective. If my reaction is he's selfish, he does not care about anybody but himself, I ask myself, how can I get him to see acting selflessly is in his best interest? Or on the other side of it, if I feel like if my reaction is, man, this guy is fun to be around, he's a good guy deep down, man, his probation officer just needs to lay off. If I feel like he's kind of got a shaft by the legal system, I need to make sure I'm not getting charmed. And maybe I ask myself, okay, well, I feel like he's a good guy, but what do I need to see from him? What is some objective, outside, verifiable proof that I'm not getting manipulated and that he is as squared away as he sure seems to be? So it's that the reactive focus to future focus is done by simply asking myself, what I'm reacting to this, what do I need to do to help this guy deal with it? You yourself, you're a good barometer for how other people are going to respond to the client as well. And if a client says something that's callous and it rubs you the wrong way, your job isn't to make him say it the right way. It's to check yourself and figure out how to get him to see your point that that's in his best interest.
Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned, you mentioned Tony Robbins too. That guy, I swear, one of these days, I guess it's on my bucket list. I really want to go to one of his seminars.
Yeah.
It's like $5.
It's a little bit of money,
though. Yeah. But it's funny because if you listen to him, it's just all CBT stuff, know, and then even it's so funny how like you hear things that are just so already existing, they've been around for years and years and years, and then somebody says it and there's amazing, and I'm like, well, I mean, kind of. He is awfully charismatic, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's CBT with a touch of charisma.
Yeah, and some storytelling behind that too. So good stuff, though. Okay, technique number 2, outcome oriented.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of times when it's easy to get caught up in the moment. If like the ultimate outcome that we want, exiting the criminal justice system without reoffending. That's a goal that the client wants. That's a goal that I want. Outcome-oriented intervention helps you stay the course and not get distracted by, getting caught up in the client's nonsense. And so there's going to be a lot of instances during treatment where your values and the client's values don't align. And if you're going to confront that, the idea is you need to check to ensure that you're not just trying to fix the client so that what they say is more palatable to you. It's that if we're talking means to an end, is this behavior effective or ineffective? Rather than does it make me feel good or bad, is it effective or ineffective? And again, like we've talked about in the other interventions, the goal here is to influence your client's current actions with their long-term outcome in mind. Don't get bogged down by their narcissism. Positive outcomes are what matter. How we arrive at the positive outcome can be a distraction based on our own values. So we need to not let our own values dissuade us. If we need to join with the client in their psychopathy and help them get out of the system.
Well, yeah,
in one piece.
Well, again, because you can't just assume that some of the traits associated with psychopathy are going to lead to bad outcomes for them. I mean, if you look at some of the qualities that are inherent with somebody who scores high on psychopathy, I mean, some of those, again, that's why look at a lot of politicians or CEOs or anything. So to just get rid of it and dismiss it as dysfunctional because it's not part of your value system, I think that's going to be a problem for the clients. Again, it turns you into a broken tool, which we're trying to avoid. So skill steps for this one.
First off, use theory of mind to confirm you understand the client's perspective. So you're basically checking in with them. This is a thinking and an action step. You're basically checking in with them. Like, here's what I think your point of view is. Is that right? And I'm doing my best to understand. Again, I'm trying to understand how they think about things. So I'm going to tell them whether I agree with it or not. Doesn't matter if I agree with it. I'm telling them what I think their perspective is, and I'm checking with them. And if I'm right, awesome. If I'm wrong, they get to be the expert. They get to correct me, and then they feel good about it. And either way, it's win-win. Step 2 is get permission from the client to give them feedback. This plays right into their narcissism. They're in the expert role. They get to decide. They get to be in charge of you in session in whether or not they want to hear from you. And this is a great way to lower their defenses. If I have something to say to a client and I know they're not really going to want to hear it, if I ask them, "Hey, I've got some feedback for you, but I don't want to give it to you unless you want to hear it. And you can take it or leave it. Let me know." That automatically lowers their defenses, and it almost engenders some curiosity. So I'm not confronting them with something that's going to put them into combative mode. I'm suggesting I might have something for them that makes them want to inquire.
But only after you've checked in with them to make sure you understand.
Correct.
And the cool thing I think about that technique is, even when you do that skill step, let's say you're wrong, it doesn't matter. They'll correct you.
Yes.
They'll correct you and let you know. So now you know exactly what it is that you're going to now give them feedback on.
That's an important point.
You should be pretty close by, some stretch. If you're an empath, after all.
Right, exactly. So assuming the client gives me permission to give them feedback, I'm again using theory of mind to guide my feedback with the sole intention of behavior modification. Again, that my goal here is long-term outcome oriented. I'm looking at exiting the criminal justice system. I'm looking at maintaining the marital vows, if that's important to this person, whatever it is, keeping the job. And that's a thinking skill step. I need to think through, okay, what do I need to say based on what I know of this guy and how he ticks, how do I need to say this such that he takes it the way I'm intending it? And that, again, the way you say it to Dark Triad might be different than the way you say it to another person. And then lastly, engage the client's theory of mind and deliver positive outcome-oriented feedback. So again, this is let's jump into the next slide. Actually,
well, on that, I was just thinking about, like, we had a client. We were talking about a case example, and this was a client that an officer like chewed him out and berated him in front of his homies, in the prison or whatever, and he thought, oh, maybe I should punch him in the back of the head when he walks away, right? And then he didn't ultimately, but he did a behavior chain that said, Officer so-and-so said this, and I really want to punch him in the back of the head. He should, I'm gonna make him pay or something like that. And then it was weird because his in his mind, the more, I guess, the less risky thoughts were, maybe I can wait till I get out and find where he lives and get him on the streets. And eventually he's going to pay for it, right? Now, ultimately, he didn't do it. And a lot of people key in on, well, wait a minute, this guy is going to go find this officer when he gets out of prison, right? And so if I'm giving them positive feedback on that, I have to not pay attention to that future thing that he's saying. I have to say, focus, because he did it correctly identify. I didn't get kicked out of the program. They didn't send me to max. I didn't get new charges. I didn't get all my privileges revoked. And I kind of felt like a bitch. It was embarrassing. And I think he thought he got one over on me as far as the consequences of that. But I'm like, dude, you didn't punch him in the back of the head. Like, that's what I provided him positive feedback
Absolutely.
on. I'm more so like, oh, great. So you were successfully able to avoid punching officer so-and-so in the back of the head. What was that like for you? And then I didn't even pay attention to the eventually I'm going to find him, because that's where it's like, hold on, Jimmy. What you're telling me is you're going to go find this guy when you get that? You can't. I need to report that. You know what I'm like, he's just talking shit at this point, right? I mean, I wouldn't focus on that thing as far as that needs to be the focus of my feedback for this guy.
If it's good you saw that opportunity, like it is a big deal for a guy like this that's motivated off esteem and how he's seen by other people to, presumably in front of other inmates, back down when a guard gave him a directive and not react.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And if you hadn't complimented him on that choice right there, you'd have missed a big opportunity to relate to this guy.
Right. And to me, it seemed like he was going to be more likely to do that more the more we focused on that. Like, what's going to happen 2 years from now? I don't really want to focus on that for the right now. But again, that's again an example for clinicians listening to this. You're going to have to look past that, and it's hard because that's an obvious problem. But you don't want to. And I never came back to it either, because it started to be more functional as time went on. So,
well, and here's the thing though. Like, let's say alternate world, you did come back to it. Like, if you've already acknowledged to the client, hey, good job not punching that guy in the back of the head in the moment, and he sees that you've recognized his positive behavior. If you know he's not getting out of jail for a while, if the opportunity does come up, again, you can use this outcome-oriented skill all the same. It's like, okay, I know you want to catch you down on the streets, but look, you're already, that was a month ago. You get out in a month. What's the right decision here? Like, you really feel like you want to do that? Is that
or not necessarily the right decision? What's the more effective decision?
That's a good catch.
You have you're leaving the prison. You have you said you lined it up that you're going to be able to go live with your girl, and there's a job in wait for you at Applebee's or whatever. And so you tell me, what's the most effective thing to do here? I mean, if what you're trying to do is do these things and list off his goals, is it more effective or less effective if you go get this guy?
Good catch that I use the word right.
Right.
It's hard. It's easy to fall into that right and wrong. So effective versus ineffective.
It's pretty clutch because that you do that when you're talking to them, and I think that language is tough to remember because they need to know you're not putting a value judgment on this. You're instead turning this into more self-interested talk, not a value judgment of right and wrong or morals or anything like that. It's more so, is this effective for you or ineffective for you? Not effective for other people. Is it effective for you or ineffective for you? What are your goals? Is it effective or is it not? And if it's not, they don't want to do it. You just got to keep that orientation the entire time. Again, a little nasty when you think about it.
So I just kind of, these statements I'm going to read off, this is like every client ever. They talk like this. So I have an example of the way that these dudes think, and then I'm going to show you how to apply the outcome-oriented skill step. So the client statement: the system's corrupt. It's all about money. They get money off supervision fees while I'm on parole, and then they get money to house me when I'm in prison. Might as well go to the family party even though my nephew's there. Then also, I'm not going to molest my own nephew. The no contact with minors rule is a blanket rule for pedophiles and lames. And then to follow up, besides that, keeping me from my family is just punishing my nephew. He deserves to see me. It's actually immoral to not let me go to the family if you think about it. So I'm actually doing the right thing by going. So clients will
and you
talk
say just
themselves.
this is what they're saying to themselves.
Yes, this is what them. Yeah, sorry. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. This is what they're saying to themselves, and this is how they think. And so, we've got the skill steps up here, and I kind of have like as if we were doing a role play. And I'll just read the skill step, and then what I might say to deliver the message. And so, skill step 1: use theory of mind to confirm you understand the client's perspective. So I might say to his name's John. Okay, I might say, John, I'm going to tell you what I think your point of view is, and then you tell me if I'm right. You think the system is set up to make you fail. That way they make money off you, so you might as well do what you want. Is that about right? So I asked that.
Hell yeah, that's right.
Good, thank you. Skill step 2: get permission from the client to give them feedback. So this is me to the client. I have an opinion about your point of view, but I only want to share it if you're interested in what I have to say. Let me know if you want to hear me out, and if so, you can take it or leave it.
We should do this with Scooter.
Oh, perfect.
Hell yeah, I want to hear the after growl.
You have to do it with Scooter. Then that was an action step. As you heard, Scooter here responded back to me. Now for skill step 3, I'm going back into my head. Use theory of mind to guide your feedback with the sole intention of behavior modification. So I'm thinking to myself a couple different ways here. So here's one way. I could tell him the smart move is to just follow the rules. They have to let him off parole eventually, and then he can do whatever he wants. Or I could tell him he's not that slick and he'll get caught. If not now, next time. The problem is he might take that as a challenge, so I think I'll go with the first option. And so, again, now the client's giving me permission, so I'm going to now deliver. I'm going to engage the client's theory of mind. So watch how I take a step into some narcissistic antisocial thinking here. I join the client in that a little bit, and then I give them a compliment and I give them outcome-oriented feedback. So watch me join within the antisocialness and compliment the client. Okay, this is me to the client. I agree. Some of the rules shouldn't apply to you, and you know what? They probably do want to just make money off you. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. Your whole goal here is to be free, right? The shortest path to freedom is to just follow the rules, whether they apply to you or not. It only takes getting caught once, and then parole starts all over. You're not stupid, John. What do you think the smart move is?
Right, and then naturally not naturally, and it's not like a guarantee it's going to work exactly how we want it to. But you're increasing the likelihood that you're going to get a better outcome from that decision, because again you're moving it away, like you're validating his thoughts. I mean, the one thing you don't want to do is, did you know that tax dollars spend $20,000 a year to house you? Or I'm like, dude, that. You're now trying to prove them wrong, and you're getting into a power struggle. Right. That's the dumbest thing on the planet to do. You're not going to win that power struggle, by the way. Like they're
better at it.
Yeah, it's like Joe Pesci from Casino. You're not winning that fight.
Yeah, you have a pencil in your neck.
Yeah, just move on.
Wasn't that a wild scene?
Oh yeah, dude, I love it. Yeah, I love that. And I always get that confused with Goodfellas, but I'm like, man, that was some good shows,
good killing.
See, and that's exactly why I'm like, yeah, all these people who do these things, we're like, we love them in pop culture, but like when it comes to these people, we're like, oh, they're just not as cool as Joe Pesci.
You got me. Hold on a sec. Hold on. Because there's a scene where they beat the dude with the bat in the field. That's Casino. What is the pencil? Goodfellas, is that Casino also?
That's Casino also.
So Joe Pesci just goes ham.
In Goodfellas, there's one, he beats some dude. He breaks a gun like on his face, hits him so hard like the gun breaks. And then they open a trunk and he stabs him a bunch with stuff. And he does a few other things, but not as vivid as in Casino. Yeah, those ones
wild movie.
Yeah, it was a wild movie. Okay, last technique.
Adrenaline attenuation. So this one's a good one. All right, this is in the moment when you get fired up. A client is either upset you, scared you, something. It's a negative interaction. And by the way, when you're going to hear me use the word aggressive here, and I'm not talking physical aggression. I'm not talking if a client is physically threatening you. That's a whole different conversation. But this is just a decidedly uncomfortable conversation where the client gets upset at you. So adrenaline attenuation is from managing your fight, flight, freeze response when dealing with aggressive clients. is to keep from taking it personally. You have to see beyond your initial emotional response and then step out of it. And the idea here is that when your fight or flight response is triggered, some of these Dark Triad guys, it's like the predator instinct kicks in. They can smell blood. They can see weakness. They can see that they got you a little bit, and you've gone from client therapist to bully victim, and you have got to get the control back in the session. You have to find a way to get your feet back under you and keep the session going in a way that still benefits the client.
Is this kind of they can smell fear?
They can smell fear
type situation. So it's different than just managing countertransference, because countertransference would be almost you initiating the aggression.
Yes.
This is them initiating the aggression on you,
Yeah.
and you're already in, like, you're kind of in a I guess you're in the receiver position of their aggression towards you, and you need to figure out how to get it back on track. Because if you not that you're going to stand up and fight them, but if you don't maintain poise here, they're going to capitalize on that.
Poise is the key here. I mean,
Yeah.
because look, like the way that so most therapists, we're really good at de-escalating things. And I think that whether in a social interaction or a therapy setting, if you, the therapist, say something that offends the client and they get fired up and they start getting ramped up, most of us are really good at, either apologizing, clarifying, restating things, explaining ourselves, getting things back on track so the client doesn't take it so personally. But when you do that with the Dark Triad client, that they see that as a challenge, or that you're backing away, and that's when they pounce. They either use ingratiation or aggression to get their way, and if they see you in the victim role, they're going to come for you. And
so fight or flight is not what you want to do.
No,
neither
fight nor flight.
Right.
Nope. I want to maintain poise and get the session back on track.
Okay.
And so first off, again, this is a lot of just recognizing the mutual adrenaline spike, right? Like, you know how it feels when you get fired up. If, the emotion, the temperature in the room changes quick, they're fired up, they're in predator mode, bully mode. You probably didn't want that to happen. You're like, oh crap, backpedaling. You're in potentially either fight or flight mode. And then it says, and by the way, I think we talked about this in the Nojo's training, that none of this stuff is like an exact recipe. You see in skill step 1 here, I'm saying recognize the adrenaline spike and take a 4-4-4 breath, like the box breathing, 4 seconds in, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds out. The idea is just take a deep breath, kind of collect yourself. If you don't count off 4 seconds exactly, you're all right.
Yeah. You go, oh, fuck it.
Yeah.
Just run.
The second step is the tricky one. This one's the one that probably takes the most practice outside of session. Maintaining a future focus. We've been over that, right? The future focus by asking the client face-saving questions. Now that, like, well, actually, I think I get into that in the next slide. The third skill step is, once all the magic happens in skill step 2, but skill step 3 is you take another big calming breath and remind yourself to speak slowly and deliberately. There's something about when you're in the fight or flight response that if your pacing of wording is fast and rushed and your voice tone goes up an octave or something, that isn't conveying the right message. Slow, deliberate, like, talk even slower than sounds natural. It calms you down. You hear yourself talking slow and deliberate, calms you down, and it also sends the message to the client that's in predator mode that you're not rattled and that you're still there to help them and that everything's fine and you're trying to get them back on track.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get into a fight with you, but also I'm not running for my life at this point either.
Right. Yes, exactly. So I'm just going to dive into each of these skill steps in detail. So step 1, recognize a mutual adrenaline spike and a 4-4-4 breath. Okay, right. We've been over that you both are in the fight or flight mode. Taking a deep breath allows the thinking part of your brain to re-engage, gives you a second. And again, recognizing the dynamic has changed from client therapist to predator prey, bully or victim. And if your fight or flight mode is left unchecked, you'll flee, freeze, or fight back, and that impacts your therapeutic relationship at a minimum. And here's the deal. This is different. Backing down or de-escalating is good in the short term, right? You avoid the fight, you avoid the confrontation. You and the client are back on track. But if you back down and or just like sorry, if they're the long term of effect of you backing down isn't good, they stop respecting you.
Right. So then step 2, maintaining future focus. This was kind of the one that you said needed a little bit more attention, yeah?
Right, exactly. Yep. So use mirroring to get the relationship back on track. Again, if you pace your client, that helps. Speaking slow and deliberate allows you for you to continue to be calm while presenting assertiveness. Look, here's the deal now. The face-saving question. Don't explain yourself. Explanations are the primitive defense mechanism to another's aggression. Explanations are a disguised form of fighting back or running. So things like, hey, sorry about that. I didn't mean it that way. Or don't be mad at me. It's your PO's rule. Or I didn't mean to upset you. Sorry. Or even the classic, oh, you should have thought of that before you committed your offense. Or but like especially the backpedaling. Again, it ruins the rapport in the wrong way. So, but you do need to ask them questions, and they need to feel like they can save face. Questions that cause them to feel like they're wrong or like they messed up or that they're going to be in trouble at the end of session because they got mad at you. You don't want them to feel that way. Saving face quells their fight response. And then look, later on, maybe the next session, maybe if you need to have a discussion on decorum, the right way to treat me, respect, that can be had later. Right then, right now, that's not when to talk about being appropriate with each other in session. So the goal here is to engage their logical brain. So again, this is just like the future focus stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's rather than like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to offend you, or what. It's you ask them, hey, what would you like to do? How do you want your situation to be resolved right now? As far as today's meeting, what do you hope to accomplish? Or even just, all right, look, dude, what response are you looking for from me? Mm-hmm. And give the bully client space to stop and think. Again, just the client fires off at you and you just say, what response are you looking for from me? That right there is a face-saving question, and you're not backing down, but you're also not putting them in the position that they're going to stay in fight mode.
Yeah, I remember this coming up in one of the groups, and the guy was, saying a lot of like horrible stuff about. It was about another therapist, and then he was saying it as you guys, and he was really insulting, and cuss words abound, and all this other stuff, and I tried to we're trying to teach a topic in group, and I kept getting off track, and I'm like, wow, this is really important to you. It was like, so, you brought it up 3 times now, and it's very important to you. What do you hope to accomplish by talking about this today? And then, it actually, because I have a weird way, because like, I always laugh at this stuff, which I don't know if that's the right thing to do, because it just when they're saying stuff, I use a lot of humor too. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of making fun of myself, because then he says something, I'm like, yeah, that's, I'll make fun of myself and do that self-deprecation for him, to invite him, do the same thing. But also not to let him know that we're rattled. That's kind of where the laughing comes in, because and I could tell he's getting hot, and I was like, okay, and then I said that, and then quickly, he kind of was like, well, let's just talk about the topic today, and I was like, hey, but you know what? Do you mind if we use this as an example, because I think it applies really well to the lesson we're going to say. Yeah, okay, cool. And then we went from there.
And that allows the client to like. Now they're participating in group and you're using that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And it was luck, but still that's rather than showing that, oh, you can't talk to me that way, or it's not my fault, or whatever. Do not want to say that stuff. That's not super helpful.
Yeah, you'll be seen as weak. So last step, another 4-4-4 breath, and remind yourself to speak slowly and deliberately. Don't dwell on what just happened. That's critical, right? You might be pissed at the client. Get over it. Figure it out later, right? Continue to adapt and plan for your desired outcome for a productive therapy session. The planned outcome should allow you to continue the session in a productive manner, just like Mace's example. Mace, you're talking to you like you're not here. Your example with just rolling it into a behavior chain is perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Again, just to emphasize, remember to speak slowly and mind your vocal tonality. Right, just keep it slow. It does help. And deep breathing and controlling your tone will distance you from your client perceiving you as a victim while keeping you calm and assertive. And lastly, don't try to get the bully client to admit you're right or that you made a good point or that they're making a thinking error. Look, you can't be right and effective at the same time when they're in bully mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that and it's not really, for all his faults. I don't know if he has any, but like Dr. Phil, he coin the phrase like, do you want to be right or do you want to be in a relationship? He says that a lot.
Oh, that's
right?
good. Yeah.
And I think too often like that's the whole thing. Us trying to prove that we're right or have authority in this situation, I think is pointless. And it doesn't do anything for. I don't think it does anything for what we're trying to accomplish with the client. So, yeah, my opinion, I think that that's a really good technique because they are going to say something almost threatening to you at times, and you do need to kind of chill out. And I guess so to cap it off, if you're looking at these skill steps, these are things that you and I have found to be effective, right? Mm-hmm. And it is very different from one person to another and I've dealt with these things before, and I mean, it's tough because I don't know if I would, I don't know how we do it. It's different for everybody, but the basic skill steps are there. You need to then add your own flavor of personality Absolutely. To that. Because like I will do that and I crack jokes and I'm humorous, but if you do that incorrectly, the client might perceive you're laughing at them or something like that, which that's just kind of the dynamic that I have with them. So some people observe me doing that and they're like, wait, how does that happen? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you other than this is my dynamic with them. You need to have your own. So skill steps first and know how to use them, and personality later, bring that into it. But have all these fundamentals and all of that really. So the cool thing is delivering CBT does not change at this point. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change. You still do it exactly the same way that you would. These attitudes change a therapist's mindset on how we're going to deliver that CBT.
Absolutely.
Into a more effective approach. So I like it. All right. We got anything else we want to say on this?
I don't think so, man.
Okay. All right, everybody. We'll see you in another 6 months. No, we'll be sooner than that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. See you, everybody.